Very good afternoon to all of you today. My name's Will Burke. I'm the Outreach and Engagement Lead for Teaching Vacancies. And also speaking with me today will be Emily Crowe, who's the Deputy Director of London South Teaching School Hub. So I'm here on behalf of Teaching Vacancies to show schools and trusts how they are able to significantly redirect their funds being spent on advertising for teacher recruitment. Putting the money back into resources for ensuring that students in their schools make even more social and academic progress. We'll also be highlighting this afternoon how Teaching Vacancies can support schools with flexible working arrangements before Emily discusses the benefits of and how to work flexibly in schools. So we'll start off about what the service is. So Teaching Vacancies is a free listing service for local authorities, state-funded schools and trusts in England. Launched in 2019, we have established ourselves as an important recruitment service for state-funded primary and secondary schools and trusts. In the past year alone, Teaching Vacancies has saved millions of pounds for schools, with every year seeing significant growth of both schools using the service and job seekers using it to find the right school for them. The reason for our existence is that we are trying to save schools and trusts an estimated £75 million a year that is spent on recruitment advertising. At a time when schools will be feeling their purse strings being tightened, advertising costs are something that should be re-evaluated, considering how that money can be spent on what is most important: children's education. Now more than ever, we know that there is more pressure on trusts and schools to ensure that safeguarding awareness is explicit for students and staff, that quality first teaching is evident across the whole school, that the curriculum offer is broad, balanced and fit for purpose, that there is a meaningful health and well-being agenda in place for students and staff, and that students expand their cultural capital. This all costs money. At a time where budgets are tight and the cost of living and running a business is increasing, being a cost-efficient school is more important than ever. We want to find quality teachers to support the ever so important work that leadership teams up and down the country do in ensuring that children receive a rigorous and high quality education that improves the life chances of children in their schools. We are a credible and trusted resource that will help put funding back into the classroom. So Teaching Vacancies is exclusive for state-funded schools and trusts in England. Trusts and schools can list vacancies as individual schools or as part of a trust using MAT level access. Not only is this a cost-saving resource for schools, but it takes the ornery out of the process of job listing, especially for larger MATs. Additionally, local authorities can list vacancies on behalf of schools using LA level access. At present, there are 3 types of vacancies that schools, trusts and local authorities can currently post on Teaching Vacancies. That's leadership roles, teaching roles and education support roles such as teaching assistants, tutors, learning support mentors and inclusion staff. The premise and the journey of using our service is really simple. Firstly, hiring staff at schools, trusts and local authorities can list their vacancies for free, immediately reducing the amount of money spent on recruitment advertising. Secondly, job seekers can search and find roles easily on the service. They can find roles that are specific to their needs, depending on where they want to work, the type of school and the type of role. Thirdly, job seekers can apply for jobs when the right position comes along. This can now be done through the service or directly through schools and trusts. And finally, hiring staff can manage the recruitment process through a simple and personalised dashboard. But although simple, the dashboard provides important statistics for advertisements, closing dates and applications. Schools also have access to a well-designed, effective application form which adheres to keeping children safe in education guidance. As I mentioned before, the service is relatively new. We've just recently seen our third birthday. In April 2019, the service was launched nationally for all state-funded schools in England to list teaching vacancies and leadership positions. Moving on to July, specific job alerts were introduced for early career teachers, helping ECTs find a role that is right for them. In the same month, we introduced MATS level access to allow trusts to list vacancies centrally and manage the process from a single dashboard. In November, job seekers could begin to create an account to manage their job alerts and save jobs. And then last year, we introduced LA level access, which enabled local authorities to manage recruitment centrally on a single dashboard. Moving through to May, job seekers were able to apply through teaching vacancies and hiring staff were able to manage that process too. And most recently, in December of last year, we expanded the scope of the service to allow schools, trusts and local authorities to list education support roles. So you can see that in a matter of 3 years, we have developed very quickly and quite sophisticatedly as well. Some of the popular key features of our service are on the screen now. I already mentioned MAT level access. And MAT level access allows trusts to manage their vacancies centrally and post vacancies across multiple schools. This also helps save time and duplication. Our scope expansion. Hiring staff can post jobs for teaching, leadership and education support roles and receive and manage applications for them through teaching vacancies. Managing the recruitment process is very popular amongst our users as well, where hiring staff can manage the recruitment process on a simple, personalised dashboard. And this makes the recruitment process clear and easy. Finally, for our job seekers, our job alerts are very, very popular, where they can sign up for job alerts to find the right role. And all of this, I remind you, is free of charge. Our performance statistics are impressive, and every single year we are seeing growth. Since our launch, over 80% of state-funded schools in England are now signed up to the service. We are the largest source of primary schools teaching vacancies directly listed by schools in England, and we are the second largest for secondary schools. In terms of our users, over 80% of hiring staff are highly satisfied with the service. Job seeker-wise, vacancies have been viewed over 5 million times since January of this year. And now we've got over 46,000 job seekers signed up to job alerts. So, just in the interest of our users, I'll just share some quotes of what some of them have said. So I won't read these out, but you can see here what they have said. Much of our users say about how easy the service is to use, how much money they have been able to save, and the quality of staff that they have been able to recruit. I did mention that we continue to develop, and what I'll share with you now is some of the things that we are moving forward with in the coming year. We are going to continue to engage with schools and MATs. We want to find out what our users want and what they need. We understand that recruitment in schools is a complex area. So we want to make sure that our service is supporting their recruitment needs. We also want to make sure that job seekers are finding the right role. So we will be introducing talent pools to the service and creating job seeker profiles within their accounts. We want to continue to optimise the service to make sure that we add roles and optimise search results for job seekers too, using paid per click advertising. And we are exploring expanding the service to include all school roles. So schools and trusts can list all of their vacancies in one place. Before I pass over to Emily, one more slide to go through with you. One area we are seeing more and more job seeker feedback on is regarding flexible working. And we know that it is often the case that a more cost-efficient way of boosting attainment and progress in schools is by investing in the high-quality staff that schools already have. Therefore, to recruit the best possible staff and retain the brilliant staff that schools already have, it's important to think about the offer that is there for our teachers. Offering flexible working can definitely help with this. This can range from part-time roles, job sharing, and offering family days. Teaching vacancies can support schools with this, as school leaders can advertise specifically for flexible roles. Nearly 1 in 5 roles advertised have been flexible and is expected to rise with demand. And to expand more on flexible working, I'll now pass over to Emily, who is the Deputy Director of London South Teaching School Hub.
Hi everybody, good afternoon, thank you Will. My name is Emily Crowe, I am the Deputy Director at the London South Teaching School Hub, based at Charles Dickens Primary School. Charles Dickens Primary School is one of 8 designated regional DFE commissioned flexible working ambassador schools. We have a number of roles within that. We support and coach schools to embed a more sustainable and proactive flexible working culture. We also raise awareness through events like today, and we also support schools on a more ad hoc basis to exemplify best practice. As you will see on the slide here, the reason why Charles Dickens has been designated is it has a number of staff with all models of flexible working across all sections of the organisation. And this allows, through having a number of flexible working options, Charles Dickens to really ensure that we have an embedded proactive offer within our schools. And as a result, our recruitment and retainment data is very, very high. Okay. Before I start with the how to recruit flexibly, I really wanted to just pause and take a step back onto the why. I think being in Westminster, I'm just going to take a moment on my my soapbox to bang the drum for flexible working. As you'll see here from the DFE workforce supply data, we have a number of colleagues every year exiting the profession. And as the more recent teacher labour market review from the NFER just this March shows that we also have a supply issue. Colleagues leaving the profession because they're not feeling that there's enough flex in the organisation at times in their life when they need it. And that coupled with the talent not entering the profession because it doesn't offer enough flexible working, or rather flexible working options. We are sadly 20 years behind other industries in terms of offering flexible working. I think colleagues have seen that it can work and that we can harness some of the measures that we were put into emergency measures as a result of COVID. I think it's important to say here that We're also realistic. Colleagues are realistic. We understand that education is a very different industry to others. It's very frontward facing. We need to be in the building, but it's how we find those more flexible and different solutions, and how we can look at the offer in education differently. I have here the benefits of flexible working. I'll just give you a moment to cast your eye over those. I think they're all fairly obvious. I think they're all what we'd like to strive for ourselves and for colleagues in our organisation. But I suppose the bigger question is, how do we achieve this? Now, the most common role models in school are people working part-time for caring responsibilities. And what happens when I go into schools and I coach them and I survey staff, those are the most common role models, and therefore that's who people feel flexible working is for, and those are the types of people that are going to ask for it. It's quite difficult to manage solely part-time flexible working options, and I think if people don't see a broad offer, they don't see those broad role models, then they won't see it as being for them. Two ways of looking at flexible working is formal flex, so that contractual change, whether that's staggered hours, part-time, job shared, annual hours, some of the things that Will spoke about. But there's also now more informal flex, so it doesn't require a contractual change. As Will said, family days, days in lieu, and this can all be wrapped up in your flexible working or your wellbeing policy that's in school. Blended CPD is something that's working very successfully post-COVID, so some remote, some recorded, some online, and it just gives people those small nuances of flex that they need to feel as though they can, have that work-life balance that they see in other industries and they've also possibly experienced during COVID. Increasingly in the schools that I work with, people are looking for full-time flex. Particularly, we're in a cost of living crisis, people might want flexible working, but they can't afford to work part-time. So it may be that you have a parent and their child's starting in reception, and for 1 year, they just want to come in 10 minutes later so they can drop that child off at school. And that may stop them requesting part-time, but ultimately it may stop them leaving the profession. So it's about having that dialogue with colleagues and really understanding what their needs are. And as I say, those needs may be small and they may be part of a full-time flexible working offer. When consulting with schools, I would say these are the 4 most common perceived barriers and concerns that I come up against. Cost is probably most often the one that I'm spoken to about. It's more expensive to offer flexible working. How can I make it cost neutral? Yes, a part-time member of staff where you want strong, consistent communication between 2 colleagues in a job share may cost you a small percentage more to give them that effective handover time. But I challenge that versus losing that member of staff. The cost of recruitment, which through teacher vacancies is obviously reduced, but you still have colleagues that need to go through that recruitment. You've got to put a head teacher to do those interview processes. Induction, you have to induct a member of staff. And I think the biggest thing is that loss of institutional knowledge and learning. That colleague's been through rigorous CPD, it knows the school, it has strong relationships, it's part of your organisation, and it's how you define that cost, actual cost versus value for money. And also I think that full-time flex doesn't cost anything, it's just offering staff small nuances to support them and in their day-to-day lives. And also I think it's important to say here that flexible working requests change throughout people's career. They may be asking for something that's slightly seasonal or ad hoc or just for a year or so. Thinking, about female colleagues, there's a certain time period upon which they're going to be having children, and it's about investing in that colleague and showing that you care and that you want to retain them. Another option is replacing with ECTs, but as we know now, there's less colleagues entering the profession, and ECTs now require a mentor for 2 years. That is funded to an extent by the DfE, but it still requires a huge amount of investment from the school. Solutions then, briefly, for overcoming this would be to do a cost role analysis. So really look at that quantitative versus qualitative. Another barrier that I come up against is understanding. Staff across organisations sometimes don't understand what flexible working is and what those options are and how broad they are. They see parents working flexibly for caring responsibilities. I think it's about broadening the perception of flexible working, and within that you'll then broaden the representation. Solutions for that are to survey staff, find out what they want, what they need, educate staff around what the options are, whether it be that formal or informal flex, and do a needs analysis of all levels within your organisation. At the end of the session, I'm going to share a QR code with you. I've put together a suite of resources with example surveys, policies, all documents that will help you kind of pick up and go and start analysing the need within your organisation. Thirdly, complexities around timetabling, communication, consistency. Timetabling, I often hear, if I open the floodgates on flexible working, what will I do? Actually, if you open the floodgates and you have a number of different flexible working options, it's much easier to map and meet the needs of your staff if you have more options of flexible working. There's some very clever software out there now that can help you timetable, help you block freeze, and another one of the flexible working ambassador schools up in Shropshire, Newport Girls High, I've put his contact details in the folder as well because he is an expert. I'm from a primary background, but he is an expert in terms of timetabling and is another flexible working ambassador school there to offer you support. Communication, talk to staff that work part-time about how they want to be communicated with, agree that, make sure it's consistent, and really work to build an infrastructure around flexible working. And finally, perceptions. School-wide perceptions, people worry about how they'll be perceived if they request flexible working, but if it becomes part of the fabric of your organisation where everybody, from senior leaders to your admin staff, are demonstrating flexible working, it becomes much more woven within the culture of your organisation. Sometimes there's a concern around parents. Actually, having 2 part-time colleagues is probably better. You'd want that over 1 full-time colleague who's totally burnt out and may be looking to leave the profession. I know I'd prefer for my children to be in front of 2 part-time teachers over the other option. And I guess moving away as an organisation from that mentality of it won't work here, trying to shift to be more solution-focused, and make sure that that is a priority for everybody, not just senior leaders. Can the colleague who wants flexible working come to you with some form of solution that you can then have a dialogue around? So how to recruit flexibly? Schools that have a very sustainable, proactive approach to flexible working may use statements like this. At Charles Dickens and the Charter Trust, where I work, they simply write on every job application, talk to us about flexible working. They don't specify in terms of whether that's a 0.4 or a 0.8. And the reason why they do this is they want to attract the best talent. It may be that the colleague that's applying doesn't want flexible working, but it's a really good platform and opportunity for you to share what your offer is. It's a really great USP in a crowded market, and it really sells your culture and allows colleagues to see that you are there to support them as their life ebbs and flows and they may need more flexibility. And it really says that we care as an organisation. And a colleague who may be coming forward might just want a very small amount of flexible working, but they may be the best talent and the best person for the job. So don't turn that person away because you're not offering some dialogue or some form of flexibility. There's some case studies here of people that are working flexibly in my organisation. Amy on the left went away to do a PhD. She worked part-time. She's now back full-time. and she is investing and enriching all of our CPD through that PhD that she's gone away and done. Cathy Buchanan, who is my CEO, requests flexible working at all levels across the organisation. And as I showed at the beginning, at Charles Dickens, there are 70% of staff that work flexibly. She often uses this term from feast to famine model. Teachers feast on flexible working during the holidays, but then there's a total famine during term time. So it's about how can we make that more balanced for colleagues, because that's not how we organise our lives. And then finally, Dan has actually been used on some of the Teacher Vacancies promotional materials. He did shared paternity. He then compressed his hours, so he worked 4 days so that he could take a day to be with his newborn daughter. So a really nice spread there of different flexible working offers and benefits. So I suppose I will leave you with my top tips. And the first one is survey your staff, find out what they want, do a needs analysis, and understand where the work needs to be done in your organisation. What's on offer, what's people's experiences of flexible working, and who are your main groups that are working flexibly, and can you expand that? I'll share the QR code, and in there is an example of a survey that we use at Charles Dickens. Embed an infrastructure. Ensure that you've got consistent procedures around flexible working. Colleagues want parity of process. They're not expecting the same outcome. They just want for them to be treated in the same way when they make a request. I think teachers are realistic that not everyone can have a Friday off, and they want the best outcomes for children at the end of the day. As I said before, be solution focused, try and work together as an organisation to find a solution. Be proactive. Again, at Charles Dickens, we do stay interviews and we talk about flexible working. What do colleagues want? And we'd much rather talk about it in a stay interview over an exit interview when you've lost that member of staff. Be open and have a dialogue at all levels in your organisation around flexible working. And I think my final point is don't be left behind. It's a very aggressive market, and flexible working will allow you to position yourself strongly and ultimately have happy and healthy staff. There are some details. My details are there. I'll share the QR code. These slides are in that folder. It'll link you through to a Google Drive, as well as lots of other resources. If you don't find there what you need, then please do email me. And I'd love to support you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily. Before we hand out the QR codes, just to note to thank you again for listening this afternoon. In terms of teaching vacancies, we've definitely grown as a service. I hope you're able to see that this afternoon. We definitely believe in our mission of saving schools money, and we do ask for your support. Do use us, talk about us, share our message. Thank you. Are there any questions? We have got a mic. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, just a quickie. When will you perceive opening up to all vacancies for all schools? Have you got a planned date in mind?
No planned date exactly, but it should be in the next academic year, we'd hope. Okay.
A question for Emily. So certainly in the schools I support, I see there is